I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watchman News. My name is Lori Swan. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you are in the live chat, we do ask that you keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forth to us by the platforms we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we go live. So we've been waiting a week for this show. This is going to be part 2 of last week's Wednesday episode. But first, I want to introduce our co-host for tonight. Special co-host Trisha is joining us. Trisha,
hey, hello,
hey, hello, and of course Ernie is also in the co-pilot seat again tonight. Welcome, Ernie.
Hey, y'all know me.
Y'all know you.
I'm always here, probably knowing every last one of y'all.
Exactly. So we are welcoming back our special guest.
You said exactly. Hey, you weren't supposed to agree with me.
Well, I'm just getting back. I'm getting back at you at what you said before we went live. So this is going to be part 2 of last week's Wednesday night show. If you guys did not check that out, you need to, because this is a special guest. Came across this gentleman over on TikTok where he is just putting out information that will just blow your mind. Welcome back to the panel, Big John.
Thanks for having me back.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yes, I appreciate you coming back. I was
looking
forward to this all week.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. It was good.
Exactly. So last week we were talking to you guys a little bit about some things. We talked to you guys about Iraq. We talked to you guys about, I believe it was Afghanistan, Kandahar, and the Giants and stuff like that. But again, go over and watch part 1. But tonight we agree that we really wanted to get into talking a little bit about Washington, D.C. We want to talk about the Dumbs, and we want to talk about a man that you may or may not have heard about. This was a whistleblower who reportedly knew about the Dumbs underneath Dulce Air Force Base in New Mexico. He was in the military, and reportedly, according to him, he was involved in a firefight with an alien race, and he was shot. He lost a couple of fingers. He was shot in the chest. And when he recovered, he started putting out information telling us about how the United States and actually governments of the world have been working with these alien beings. Unfortunately, Mr. Phil Schneider lost his life. He was ruled suicide, but the facts of his death do not support that. He was strangled from behind using a rubber cord, but yet it was ruled suicide. So make your decision up on that. So I'm going to turn it over to Big John, and you can take us wherever you want to take us tonight. Over to you.
That sounds good. Washington, D.C. So we've talked about how this is most likely Egypt here in the United States. Now, a very sensitive subject is the Freemasonry. It's, I know some of them. I know the term, the Blue Masonry, is for the lower echelon that may not ever even know any kind of secrets or symbols, and that's even mentioned by Albert Pike. So there is a level of them that will never know unless they, want to know into the higher degrees of enlightenment. Now, we can agree that the founding fathers, most of them were Freemasons. Mm-hmm. And the whole layout of Washington, D.C. is Egyptian, but has been cornerstoned by the Freemasonry. And I guess we can start with the Great Seal on the dollar bill. Now, you have to excuse my country pronunciations, but the Latin words, of course, underneath the pyramid, on top, and then you have the e pluribus unum, which is out of one many. All those things relate to Osiris, Apollo, Ishtar, and Horus. It's all it's all of them, because they all have a story.
John, I don't want to interrupt you. Trisha's trying to get back in. Trisha says device is not connected, hon. Go out and come back in. Okay, wait. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, do what you got to do.
Go ahead. Carry on. Yeah, she's got to come out and go back in. Okay, go ahead. We'll put her in.
Yeah, no problem. So the Great Seal, everything pertains to Osiris. He's the main character, and when Manly P. Hall wrote The Secret Destiny of America. Mm-hmm. And Osiris, of course, is Nimrod, and it may or may not be their founder. I think it is. I think Nimrod is the father of Freemasonry. And with the seal, you have you got the 13 steps of the pyramid, 13 arrows on the other side. On top of the pyramid is, and I know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's like, I'm just going to say Ananuit Kopatai, and that particular phrase is from a prophecy of a oracle that was called the Cumane Sibyl. Now, that's the oracle that Paul the Apostle encountered. And she also had run-ins with Peter in the first, I guess, maybe meetings of what we would say the Vatican would have been if Peter was the first pope. And her prophecy was the return of the Golden Age, or the Golden Dawn, and the return of Jupiter, which is Lucifer. And that's on the dollar bill. Now, Jupiter is also Osiris. So it's all, basically it's all Egyptian. No matter what culture, it's all Egyptian. That's just what the bottom line is. And every inauguration of the president at the House of the Temple, which is the headquarters of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry in Washington, D.C., they do what they call the apotheosis ritual. And I talked about that last week.
Yes.
The apotheosis is when Set, the brother of Osiris, chopped him up into 14 pieces. And they couldn't, and the Ishtar looked around, threw him in the Nile River, of course. Ishtar couldn't find just the number 14, which was his genitalia. And then she took an obelisk or a phallus and put that together with his other pieces, and she did the apotheosis, which was basically, sex ritual and Babylon workings. So the Washington Monument is obviously an obelisk. Now, the height of it is like 6,666 inches. It has all the bases, basically, of all your Illuminati numbers, Freemason numbers, right? And it faces a dome. Now, you go to Capitol Hill. The Capitol Hill dome, the cornerstone, David Ovison is a Mason, a Freemason, and he wrote that the cornerstone of the Capitol Hill building was set to appease the invisible agencies. This is in his book. And they even have they have bronze plates on the Senate doors that show George Washington standing there with another Mason. And they're both wearing their garment, their trowels, I think they call them. So the Freemasonry is all incumbent inside every building, the layout of Washington, D.C. And so inside the rotunda of Capitol Hill, there's a painting up there called the Apotheosis of George Washington. He is surrounded by 72 angels. They look like little, cupids. But that's the Goetic gates. That's the 72 fallen angels of because there's a story now, and I know that I'm trying to stay on topic. The 72 Goetic gates goes back from Sidon, which was the capital of Phoenicia, and Pythagoras studied there. And there were 72 Goetic gates, also known as ascending masters. And that's why, like maybe on your Paramount movie, when it shows a mountain, that's Mount Hermon, where the fallen angels fell, and then there's 72 stars that come out of the side of the, before the movie starts, and that's a 72 fallen angels that cover Mount Hermon. And so you have all this apotheosis in Washington, D.C. That's like the main thing. Now, and what the Freemasons know about it is whenever Lucifer is to enter the flesh of the wounded Antichrist, that is going to happen underneath the rotunda in the Capitol Hill building. So going back to every inauguration, they get in the House of the Temple and they perform the inaugurate, and they try to pull up the spirit of Apollo, which is Apollyon, or Osiris, same thing, different cultures, and they try to get the spirit like Ishtar did to go into the president of the United States. They do it. This is fact. Now, whether or not it works for them, nowadays maybe it does work, considering all the weird things going on now. When they built the Capitol Hill building, there are 3 stars that line up in the western skies from the White House to the Capitol Hill to the western skies. It's Arcturus, Skypa, and then the other one starts with R. I can't. You probably could find them here for me. Those 3 stars line up exactly behind the Capitol Hill building, and like every August the 10th, it matches up with the constellation of Virgo, which is also Ishtar, and it sets like a dusty rose color on Pennsylvania Avenue. And this is like the smile of their queen, they call it. And, Dusty Rose, Rosicrucians. I guess that's a whole nother thing we could get into. But the bottom line is Washington, D.C. is definitely laid out as Egypt is because it matches the Vatican. You have St. Peter Square has the obelisk in the middle, and it faces the dome of the basilica. I guess that would be the church there. And then you have the Washington Monument faces the dome. That is Osiris's private part, the Washington Monument, facing the ever pregnant belly of Ishtar. That's the apotheosis. It's at the Vatican. It's at Washington, D.C. And the obelisk at the Vatican, the one there, it literally was taken from the city of Heliopolis, the city that was there before Adam. That's my opinion. And they took that from that city and put it at the Vatican as, a standing point. Because when the founding fathers came here, Francis Bacon had the idea and the prophecy and even maybe small writings of the New Atlantis. And they wanted an occult democracy that would hide who they wanted to worship when they would escape England. And we could go through who's Freemason, and who was also, Bavarian Illuminati, which from my understanding was two different standpoints at one time, because you have George Washington in his later writings that was actually going against the Illuminati. And that's probably one of the reasons why he was ended up, being poisoned or whatever really happened to him. But yeah, astrologically, the constellation of Virgo, which is Ishtar, lines up. Washington, D.C., I mean, even George Bush Jr., before his second inauguration, he gave a speech, and he said in the speech, the direct quote, "The United States has a calling from beyond the stars." That was referring to the three stars that line up behind the Capitol building, because the Capitol building is also set to look like Moloch the owl. And that comment he made is from the Necro Comic Con book, which is, I'm not sure, I know it's like the Book of the Dead or something, but that's out of there. So he quoted that. And all I pertain to is, why would they do all this? You know what I mean? Why would they do all that if it wasn't connected?
Well, if you look at it, I mean, we're all under awareness that there's no coincidences. Everything is connected in one way, shape, or form, especially when it comes to them.
Definitely. It's when you start looking at, and it's the zodiac and the constellation. Of course, that's, to me, that this is, to me, Egyptian. The writings in the stars, even when like the Phoenicians they were such great sailors per se, because, they knew the prime meridian, and they knew the miles across the earth, and every number like that are all connected. I explain, I have the numbers in my head, but I have to go. I pinned that video on my TikTok about the numbers of the nautical miles of the earth, and how the Earth's rotation through the signs of the zodiac, and all those numbers like match per se the crash in Roswell, like literally match the long and lat coordinates of this craft. And it's just like, that's how I look at it. Whether the Freemasons have anything to do with it or not, it's like, why does it connect? Why is it said?
Right. I mean, numbers hold a lot of power.
Yes.
I mean, when you're looking at biblical texts, you can see the power in those numbers, and the enemy trying to invert those and use it for his own glory. It makes perfect sense.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Numbers on both sides. Numbers, of course, created by God, and then it's like I said before. When they were kicked out of the First Estate, they brought some technology, not all the stuff, but just enough to where it would bamboozle humans.
Right.
But they don't have exactly what God has. But definitely with the numbers, they took that and ran with it. But yeah, so Washington, D.C. is definitely Egyptian. And even through other, like I know earlier, I think Iroquois were mentioned, and the Iroquois were known to have Masonic. I don't know if I would say jewelry. I would say like, I don't even know if they have uniforms. I've seen, you know, I guess like I would have to be drawings with no photographs, but it's noted in a lot of books that the Iroquois, especially because they're the ones involved in the French and Indian War, and they had a lot of Masonic things. But the thing was, it looked Egyptian. You know, they had the eagle and of course the Eye of Horus. They had these things. This is fact. So it's like, how did these indigenous tribes come across this unless they had, you know, run-ins with whether it was the French or the Spanish from the South, or, you know, or wherever, you know, whoever settled in there. But the whole Masonic genre is just embedded and definitely in the founding of this country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it all over. I mean, our state capitals, our court system. There's symbols everywhere, and I've heard that a lot of these monuments and stuff like that has astrological significance. Do you know whether or not that is true, and if so, how?
I think it's like maybe the layout, and like I said, the way that the stars, the stars, the constellation of Virgo line up behind the Capitol building, that is Ishtar, and that is her pregnant belly that they, you know, when they make the dome. So to say that those three stars connect behind that, and, you know, they make the what they, you know, and I think her name was Julie Druin. It might have been a poem, but she says that on August the 10th, it makes the dusty rose color on Pennsylvania Avenue. And they all wait for that because, like I said before, that's, it don't matter if it's Illuminati or any kind of secret society or just Hollywood. Ishtar, that is their person. They love Osiris, but they definitely care for her a lot too. And
absolutely.
Doesn't it have something to do with the dog star as well? So isn't Sirius the dog?
Yes, Sirius. Yes. Sirius is involved too. I've never really either looked at that or heard anything about that. I did know about the, like I said, the Ishtar and the three stars, but I've seen Sirius is involved in that too. Because in, like, you know, the Roman gods, they have, you know, they're all, one was a servant of the other, and this one brought knowledge here, and then it's all the same, but, you know, of course, you know, Sumerians call them different names, Roman, Greek, you know, Egyptian, Phoenician. It's definitely all different, same people, it's just the different names, and I always found that kind of hard to keep up with, even though I got a decent memory.
Yeah, the Ishtar name, I mean, it coincides with Semiramis, Catholicism version of Mary, a whole bunch of other things too in other different cultures.
Yes. That's right, Semiramis. Yeah, that's that. Now I noticed that people have been talking a lot more about, you know, the female entity, and they may even call her Sophia too, and maybe even Diana.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to portray that as, and now I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure I heard this way that she might have been the twin sister of Jesus. You know, I know that from my TikTok, if I mention that, I'll get some comments about, oh, you know, how can you say that about her? And it's like, well, you know what? It's not that, you know, we're not buddies, but she did come out in an egg, and I don't know why. You know, why is she in that? That's just.
Somebody had mentioned on the last broadcast, and I forgot to mention it, but Lady Gaga came out of an egg as well, and that was a whole ritual to her.
Oh yeah, okay. You're right. I remember hearing that. Yeah. So I mean, it's like, why would you do that? You know, why would you be an egg if that? You know, that's
right. Exactly.
It's like, you know, they just don't do that kind of stuff just to do it. It's got something behind it.
And also when they put the cornerstone, I believe it was on the Capitol building, George Washington and the Freemasons did a ritual where they brought in wheat, and there's an actual name for it. I can't remember at the moment, but it was a ritual that they performed when they laid the cornerstone, and it was assisted by the Grand Master of Maryland. His name was Joseph Clark, and it was a Masonic ritual. Let's see. It says many of the items of ritual paraphernalia used in the cornerstone ceremony have been repurposed and are currently used for the placement of the foundation stones in other important buildings in Greater Washington area. Centennial and bicentennial observances in the U.S. Capitol Cornerstone Lane were held in 1893 and 1993, respectively. And there's going to be another ritual in 2093 for it. And it goes in, I'll put the link for you guys to look at it, but it talks about how they brought honey, I believe it's honey and wheat, and they did this whole, it's a complete and total Freemason ritual that you can even read about in their books.
Yes, it's like, why are they doing that?
Right?
Why would they do that? Why would they go through all that when they can just build something?
Well,
but it has to have an audience, just like they said, the invisible agencies, their ascending masters have to approve.
And when we say rituals, we're not talking about, sitting there with a program in front of you, we're talking about, if you've ever been to a military funeral and you watch the guys folding the flag and how they do it completely ritualistic, and every action and movement has a purpose. That's what we're talking about when we say rituals that they perform.
Yes.
Is the point of a ritual to summons a demon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if we look at it like this too, you see rituals all the time in media and entertainment. I mean, for instance, when you're looking at the Super Bowl, a lot of the performers at the halftime show performs those type of rituals. The Grammys, the Oscars, you name it. There's always some form of ritual that is coming from those exact same groups of people who are of the synagogue of Satan, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. It's like too, like with the ritual, they'll show you, but they know that the ritual, I call it arming something else. They may particularly do something, but it's for something else that comes along that people will be like, I wonder how that happened. How did that go along like that? It's because they did the ritual perfectly like it was supposed to be. And then they were, rewarded, whether it was like a mass casualty event or whatever. But, everything is, they just don't do it. They do it to show you, but I guarantee it's going to help along some other event that's going to get basically their blood sacrifice.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing. If I can find it while we're talking, I'm pulling up these visuals for us. There is what's known as the pentagram of blood over the U.S.
Yeah, for sure. And then a pentagram in the Washington. And I saw earlier, y'all pulled up the owl layout of Moloch by the Capitol, and that's that's like I said, George Bush said that out of that the building is set for the Bohemian Grove entity, and we all know that they all go there. And then of course, good old Alex Jones, snuck in and exposed all that.
He didn't sneak in; he was let in.
Yeah. So.
If you know anything about Bohemian Grove, it's got more security than the Pentagon, and yet he just somehow moves the mess right in. Let me pull this up. This is when we talk about rituals, we talk about blood sacrifices. These are the things that we're referring to. So if they do these rituals and then when they do these rituals, they get their rewards. So this is the pentagram of blood that goes across the United States, and it talks about where JFK Jr. went down, 9/11, DC Sniper, Virginia Tech, All of these events, if you take a look and you overlap it on a map of the ley lines, you would be surprised.
That's exactly it. It's like, how does that add up like that? If
Right.
it ain't nothing. That's not true. Yeah, it is. That's nothing can line up like that unless
No.
it's a ritual.
It's because what they do is these rituals and this whole thing is manufactured in the spiritual realm, and then when they do their rituals, it manifests itself in the physical realm. That's
right.
how, you know,
That's exactly it.
we sit there and go, how do they do this? Their signature, their numbers, their gematria is all over this. You know, there's no way this can naturally happen. It has to be supernaturally, and that's how it is.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly it. And back to, I was going to say, they Manly P. Hall and people. I don't know. I haven't had a run-in with any Masons on TikTok in a while, but Manly P. Hall gave commentaries about the secret destiny of America, and he even said that their order off the Great Seal, like I mentioned earlier, the oracle that Paul encountered and stuff, and the return of the Golden Age, basically just pre-flood of Noah events of the Genesis 6:4 narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Manly P. Hall said that there will be a Masonic king in this order that is illumined, a half heroes, which would be half fallen angel, just like the story of the Watchers of Genesis 6, and they will rule in this new age in America.
Their demigods are coming back, guys.
Oh, for sure, and it's like, I've just just kind of like maybe running into different people. They said that it's like, has there been a shift? Do you think that these demigods, these smaller gods that once ruled? I'm like, oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. And then I guess people, of course, on shows are talking about it more, and I think there's even a book. I don't know, I forgot who it was, but about the return of these destroyer gods.
Have you read the book The Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne?
I have not. I think I had that a while back, and I never got to it.
Okay. He's actually going to be one of our guests coming up.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll talk to you when we get off the air to bring you back when we have him on. Because I think the two of you would be bouncing off each other. I wouldn't even have to do anything. I can just sit back and do my nails. I just sit back and do my nails, let you guys talk. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that the rituals that we see right now, these blood sacrifices, coming up into this, the threat of nuclear exchange would be catastrophic as far as what do I want to say, the death toll. These are all things that they're utilizing to appease these demigods to return.
Yeah, for sure. It helps them with their depopulation. It's chaos because they can have order.
It's a win-win for them.
Yes, for sure. They can have order out of chaos and bring in man of peace in a time of hectic happenings.
Exactly.
I understand a lot of these rituals are to put a spell over people, which would explain why people aren't logically thinking through. Like, none of this makes sense. The thing that we can't talk about.
It's a good thing you just said that, because when I mentioned Francis Bacon, now Francis Bacon was the illegitimate son of Queen Mary I, the Virgin Queen, but she had him. And the Bacons were outside of the castle, but a very prominent family, and they adopted him. So, he comes from the bloodlines of the royalty. Now, John Dee was a sorcerer at the time and, an advisor to Queen Mary I. John Dee actually described and helped him with the New Atlantean, writings and everything. And of course, Francis Bacon was Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. But he had the writings of John Dee said there's actually rituals that can fog people's minds. Such a ritual that will make you give in to believeth a lie, like God says. You know what I mean? It's those are actual things. And because you can sit back and say, how can you believe that? But it's as we know it, it's, well, yeah, there's a ritual for that too. You can actually, create an atmosphere in someone's mind that everything's okay and everybody else around them is just crazy. And then, but no, they've just been, like the fog of war, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sir Francis Bacon, he wrote a book called The New Atlantis, which actually the United States government was created around his book.
That's right. Yeah, I was saying that. Yeah, that's right. Earlier, I don't know if you were on here. I saw your mic was off, but that's right. His prophecy was an occult democracy where they could worship, who they didn't want to reveal to, England and other. Obviously the occult to keep it hidden.
Yeah.
But yeah, they wanted to have a hidden democracy which was dedicated to the light bearer, and that was exactly the writings of the New Atlantis,
right,
about America, and it's Francis Bacon. Even there was so much, even with like George Washington, and they all knew, they all followed Bacon. He was definitely one of their influencers, I guess.
Old-fashioned influencer.
Now, didn't Helena Blavatsky and Alice A. Bailey took some of those teachings from Sir Francis Bacon and implemented it in their movement too?
They did, yeah. And all that New Age ascending masters, yes.
And now we see New Age infiltrated the actual church, and
yes. Whew.
Oh yeah, they do yoga and stuff at churches and stuff.
Oh yeah, and the prosperity gospel and other forms of religions are based off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even I know there's a Freemason with the name yoga with yoga in the person's name. That might have been the creator of yoga, but yeah, that's all just connected, and it's like it's being played again for a whole new group of people. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, we know what it is, but not everybody else either doesn't care or doesn't know, and that's how you have power over people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because the new generation that comes in, it's like us right now. We're aware of these things. We're awake to these things. But this new generation, these 20-something kids who think that they know whatever, there's nothing they don't know.
Yes, exactly. They have such a knowledge explosion with social media and information going so fast. But you're right. It's like they introduce this. The old will be the new, and then they're just going with it, even though it's all paganism or whatever. It's the Egyptian esoteric mystery religion schools.
Nothing new under the sun, Deb says. Absolutely, Deb, you are right.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing new under the sun. As in the days of Noah, so shall it be with the coming of the second coming of man.
That's right. Jesus described, what happened to the flood of Noah. And that's one thing that I think, in my journey of it, was when I encounter people, it's like, he did say that, and they were like, well, Noah, they were getting drunk and just being bad, and I was like, no, I said it'll blow your mind what they were doing.
Yeah. Oh God, they were up to a lot. I mean, when you guys look at, when you would say mythology, when you've got the griffin and you've got the half man and half animal, things that are on the planet, and
that's right, chimeras,
exactly. And you look at these things, and those are what is coming back now. Those are the things that we're seeing. Yes,
coming back is already back. I mean, they've developed chimeras.
Yeah, right. Well, yes, there was drinking. Yes, there was fornication. Yes, there was alcohol and the sins of the flesh. But it went deeper than that. It went to the basis of DNA alterations.
100%. That's the name of the game, is that DNA manipulation. For Egyptians, they always have the double helix hieroglyph symbol on everything. That's found in every civilization has. It don't matter if it's in the Toltecs or the Aztecs after them, Mayans. They always have the DNA strand, but they also have Egyptian gods on their tablets and different little artifacts. It's like, hey, why is it always Egyptian? Of course, obviously, because Egyptians were the original Anunnaki, and they were always visiting the different cultures, showing them basically the blood sacrifice and how to do pharmakia and just a repeat to poke the eye of God with, look, okay, we have another set of people that we found, and we're going to show them all the things that you hate. So it's just, having a bunch of bullies go around.
Exactly.
Well, I can't help but think this is why they're pushing the mixture of males and females, especially to the little kids in school, because now you've got them. Okay, so doctors are willing to perform those surgeries, if you know what I mean, and genital mutilation surgeries on children who are still just in, imagination world. And they are complying or going along with little kids who think they're a cat. They'll put a cat box. So what's next? Are they going to do surgery on them to make them a cat? Give them fur?
There's no telling.
I mean, this is perverse.
It's almost a free-for-all now. I guess, like Paul said, redeem your time, for the days were continuously evil. And that went along with about, like in the days of Noah, when it says, men continuously did evil in their heart, where there was like, it's time to load the boat up, and but yeah, it's an agenda. If you go back to even any kind of studies of Sodom and Gomorrah, there's nothing new about that. I've always tried to respect people. I get people have emotional things with them, and nobody's perfect, obviously, and including myself. And I've come across a lot, and that's the days when I first converted, and I haven't preached in a long time, but like literally going out underneath the overpasses and the highways and byways, and it's I try to get people just to have a relationship with Jesus, no matter where they come from with that. And I know, I'm like, look, what you are involved in is, if sin is the same, I said, I know the person that can fix it for you.
Yeah.
And I have had success to at least get them in the scripture and not be turned away by you just want me to burn, in hell, basically. And, but going back to the factual history, even like in Sodom and Gomorrah, they took over the government there. If you want, transgender. And they took over the military there. And that's when, by the time that, they decided to get Lot out, when the angels went, I mean, literally the story of it tells you how infested the city was in, the lust. And there's even a term that we may say today that came from that, when the angels blinded, basically the entire population that wanted to be with them. They were so infatuated, they were so covered with the demonic lust. It's just, and they were blinded, and they're literally grabbing for each other. But when you look at like Sheba and Jezebel, they also wanted to have the separation, when the Bible says, hey, don't wear, the pants, which probably more like tunics, because men wore the tunics. But there was that genre of women looking like men in the biblical time. So nothing about that is new.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. Even the story of Joan of Arc, she even implies about how before her, the females, would not necessarily want to change, but would look like men, maybe to gain with, like, look at her, what she did. And she gained, she was mistaken for a male.
There was a Disney, was it Huna or her? Where it was a female princess, but she dressed up like a boy.
I remember something like that.
I can't think of her name.
It's like it's they may have shown it as, she wanted to escape persecution or whatever, but it's like there's two sides of it.
Mulan. Thank you, Jennifer. I knew it was something like that. Mulan. Yeah.
There's always two sides. It's like they show it to be good, and like I said, I don't get too much involved in that. because I don't want to, I don't want to say some people's toes, because I stand up for what I believe in. But I think that everybody at least needs a chance to be told, hey, if they engage me, if they notice that, oh, okay, well, this guy, talks about Jesus and talks about different things, I'm going to tell them what I think. I'm going to say, you know what, you need to get a relationship with the Lord. Don't get my opinion. You go get a relationship, and then He can fix it for you. I can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. I was putting this up on the screen, John. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a site. It talks about the androgynous, the future for the goys. If you don't know what goy is, guys, it's listening. If everybody that's listening, that is their word for us, for the Gentiles, is the goy. They have no respect for us whatsoever, and their goal is, it says in the Kabbalah, Adam, the primal or original man, is said to be androgynous. In other words, according to the Satanic Bible, man was created sexless. It goes on to talk about Alice Bailey. It goes on to talk about Joseph Mengele. It goes on and talks about how the Human Genome Project, it is the androgynous is the occult goal for mankind, their rationale being that men must be conformed to the image of Christ, who they believe is regarded as the androgynous Adam. Initially, population control will affect everyone except the elite. Only those who have been genetically engineered will be allowed to marry heterosexually and reproduce. Then human sexual procreation will cease, as the Gnostics seek to produce an androgynous race via asexual methods. So when you see all these things that are happening, these attacks on our children, this is their goal.
Yeah, the transhumanism. They'll sit there and talk about it in an economic forum about exactly what you just said, about how to control, in other words, the most basic thing is Lucifer gets the last laugh, because, that's the thing that we can procreate. They can't.
Right. And that was what we were commanded to do. God said, go forth and populate the earth.
Exactly. And that's the most simplest thing that people try to wrap their minds, but it's just right in front of you. It's like, oh no, he's just mad because we can procreate. And people are like, well, that's it. Oh yeah. They'll do what they can not to, because they want to stop that.
Right. Exactly. And as our generation dies off and the new generation comes in, we are the only thing standing in the way of this right now.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And I try to remember a time where, it was, maybe times were tough for people, but it's like, I remember you didn't see, and I'm not, the oldest, wisest person, but I just remember that I just never saw none of this. If you had a lifestyle, that was your business, that's cool. Do your thing.
Right.
I never, I just kind of I just didn't care. I just did my thing. They did their thing. And it's like, but now it's just being pushed.
I think it's in our face. Yeah. We all had that uncle that was a little weird. And, the adults whispered about him, and we knew there was something odd about him, but we didn't know what, and when he would come to dinner, Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, he'd be like, hello, very flamboyant. Hi, but nobody talked about it. It was stuff that happened behind closed doors, like much about, with promiscuous sex nowadays too. It wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I get that wasn't either. It was both sides. It was a straight and it's just it's kind of like, what, that's what you do. That's your business. And then now, like I said, it's definitely, and y'all know that too, obviously. But it's everything is, and it's like, where does it stop?
Right. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Exactly.
The moment you say something that go against societal norms, you're going to be canceled.
That's right.
Exactly. True. If you I don't want to say give in, but you're like, you know what? Okay, I can back you up. I know I want to help you because you're human, and I want to see you through. But then it's like, no, they want more. And They want more, and it's like, no, where does that stop at? It's like, I've agreed with you. Now you're coming back again, and you want more.
Yeah, it's like a drug addict who has to get the next high and the next high, and it's like they have an unsatisfied quench.
Exactly.
For sin.
And that's how you know it's an agenda.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now,
using repetition as their key to brainwash
exactly.
masses.
keep coming at you, and it's like, no, this is something else. It's an agenda.
You've crossed the line. They crossed the line when it came to kids. Sorry, but that's.
But you know what? We've seen this attack on the nuclear family straight from from starting in the 1960s with the sexual revolution, with the feminist movement. They started to attack the nuclear family. The divorce rate went up. We had the latchkey kids. We had, before, come on, we used to watch Ozzie and Harriet. We used to watch a Dick Van Dyke Show. They never even showed two married couple sleeping together in the same bed. That's how wholesome it was. But then gradually in the 60s, it started that spiral. You've got, now you don't have mom at home anymore. Now mom's got to get out and go to work. So the kids are just left for the schools to raise. Your child is in school more hours per day than he's home with you.
Yes.
And like Savali said, is that how you say her name, Savali?
Savali, yeah.
They put their people in the schools and the daycares.
And the daycares.
To groom the children. They've got their people everywhere.
Yes, they do.
I was going to say about when you mentioned the 60s. So the Vatican, right? Let's go back real quick to Operation Paperclip. Now, yes, we know that they brought in the top scientists for NASA and, the Manhattan Project, stuff like that. So, and then just whatever, any kind of government agency, that's where the CIA came about, all that stuff. But the little known fact is, where were the German camps in the United States? What state were they in? Do y'all recall that?
No, I don't.
They were in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
wow.
Okay. And now these people have their names changed, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is fact. And what occupation were they given?
Scientists, doctors.
Okay. That's the ones that they tell you about. Here's a lesser known fact, gonna blow your mind. Catholic priests.
Oh, wow.
That's where all the bad things happen to children started in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's why that became a problem.
Yes, it did, because you got a bunch of Nazis that brought over that were doing that during the war with the children, and they needed to cover. People get mad, but this is fact. They all became Catholic priests. That's why it started in Pennsylvania. That's what started the whole thing with the happenings in the Catholic churches, because most of the priests at that time, I'm talking thousands, being occupied in the Catholic priests. And they also had a black mass in 1964 in South Carolina, which introduced the psychological operation of the destruction of the nuclear family that year. That's where it started at. A black mass inside the United States ordained by the Vatican.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's all fact. That's that stuff, and the guy who really crusaded with that, his name was Russ Dizdar.
Yeah.
And
we know him.
We know Russ very well.
Russ unfortunately passed away. I ran into Russ at a conference. Let me tell you, wow.
Him and his wife passed away.
Yes, they did. Yeah, my opinion is they got Russ's. Now people call me crazy, but who cares, right?
No.
They got Russ's DNA, and him and his wife, and they made a special DNA based bioweapon that killed him, because I know of a private autopsy that was done on Russ, and he didn't have no regular COVID. Him and his wife had something else.
Oh God. Yeah. We suspected that when it happened as well. If you guys don't know who Russ Dizdar is, he's famous for talking about the Black Awakening and the rise of the super soldiers. Go ahead and look. You can find, I believe, what's his name? All I can think of is Art Bell, but it wasn't Art Bell. It was John B. Wells. Did a real good interview with him back in 2014.
Yes, John Wells. Yeah. Was it Midnight? What was the show?
Midnight Caravan.
Midnight Caravan. That's right.
Yeah. You can find that. I believe it's still on YouTube because I just looked that up the other night. I gave it to somebody. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, they scrubbed a lot of Russ's stuff.
They did.
Russ attended a conference probably in 2016 that I had went to, and now the Black Awakening was a book that I read it, but let me tell you that's the only book I ever had to. I don't want to say throw away, but I got rid of it because that had so much bearing to whatever I experienced in my conversion, and maybe what I saw before when I was an atheist and stuff from that particular operation. But that was something else. That might be a story for another day. But that was the only book I only got rid of. I was like, this is way too real to me.
Wow.
I mean, is it possible that you could have been programmed?
It may have been. I only think about it as an atmosphere because I don't know if I ever mentioned it. Like I said, my TikToks don't have a topic. I go into 10 different things in 3 minutes. So I may have mentioned that I felt like there was some kind of atmosphere over me from a particular operation that we had discussed. And because I actually got into worship of Osiris before I converted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So you had an open door.
Yes. It was like I thought that he was Jesus. And that's when, I tell a story about how my ex-wife, I was saying these just horrific things about Jesus, and she literally slapped my face and said, "Who are you? What has overtaken you? What?" And I didn't know this till a couple of years later, but she prayed the night before that I had my conversion, before the Lord showed up per se. And I didn't know this, but she goes, "I put you on the altar." She said, "I told him, I'm done with you. You have to do something about it. You have to take him off this planet to save him." And I say that when he showed up, that was, he told me, I gave you free will. I don't care what you do. You got free will. But when the innocent cries out for you, when the believing wife sanctifies the unbelieving husband, I will do something about it. And that's what happened.
I'm glad you came out of it, because that's some really dark stuff. And I'm wondering if some of that programming could have happened while you were in the military. Possibly. It's
very possible. It's like I said.
Yeah. Well, it's.
I guess having an impressionable mind. I guess if you don't you don't have to directly do the rituals to have a mean heart per se, because my heart wasn't anywhere near it is now. It's like I really didn't like people,
and we discussed last week, John, that they put you and other soldiers into positions where you had access to the things that you talk about because of your lack of faith.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
And, and I felt like, so what I say is, it's like, it's not that you don't have to go, quotation, worship the devil. You can have an atmosphere without him in it, and that's still not good.
Right. Exactly. Now, let's. I want to kind of switch because we're coming up on an hour, and I know we've got a couple more things we want to talk about. So I'm going to try to transition us into. We were talking about all of these things. We're talking about the rituals, and when these entities return to the planet, the elite truly believe that they are going to be spared somehow and receive eternal life and get rewarded by these entities. And in the book of Isaiah, chapter 2, verse 19, it says, "And they shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth for the fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to strike terribly the earth." So when these entities return and turn on the elite, they are going to go into the dumbs or into these tunnels that they have been creating for literally decades, right?
Yes, for sure.
They're going to be a great exposure that's going to go on to portray the real New World Order.
Yes, yeah, to rule from the underworld, basically, with these
exactly
with these dumbs. Now, a lot of the dumbs, like history of, like, you know, maybe when the cavalry used to fight against, you know, the indigenous tribes, there were stories that the tribes disappeared, you know, and they knew that that there was entrances to maybe the cities, you know, anything in the oral traditions of, you know, the Apache or Comanche, and just all of them have the same story, basically, that there are these chambers, if not cities, and I believe that this is part of the Shinkana tunnel system, as you know, we talked about last week in Peru, and they just kind of went off from there. Now, earlier you had said about chimeras. Now, this is how I'm going to come into the underground military bases. Dulce, New Mexico. That's where, of course, Phil Schneider talked about his experience with the firefight in 1979. Now, and Dulce, that is, I'm pretty sure I'm right about the Apache. That is an Apache reservation.
I believe it is, yes.
They talk about, there's all kind of sightings, dinosaurs, spiral portals in the sky,
yep,
pterodactyls, thunderbirds, if you will. Just anything, any kind of cryptid thing is just going on there. And that's happened, obviously, before the base was even established, on the surface wise. Now what's down there, I'm sure has been there, like you said, for a long time. And there's a section of Dulce called Nightmare Hall, and that's where they have the chimeras, which is half animal, half human. Now, there was a story. The guy was CIA. The person that told this, I believe them. So this is what I'm just going to tell you what they said. This guy, his code name was Maverick. You know, cliche, whatever. But he was down there in Nightmare Hall, and he said that they walked him through kind of to show off what they've been doing, or, you know, show off, or, you know, because everybody down there, I think, kind of has the same ask as, like, well, maybe, you know, the Lord's not down here, because this guy said that, you know, I was a bad person. I have killed. It doesn't matter what age they were. He has done bad things in his career as a, you know, mercenary or CIA or whatever he was. And so he says he's walking along, and they're giving like a tour, basically. And he said that there is this, it has a human body, but it has a pig's head. And he said it's kind of like slumped. It looks depressed. He just said it, you know, all the other, he said they had humans with multiple legs, like a spider. They had what he would describe like a velociraptor body. That, by the way, when I was in the abyss during my conversion, when the Lord put me down there, I remember seeing like what I would say is a dinosaur with like a cat's head. This guy described this when I heard of this account about a year after my conversion. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So they had that, and well, so this thing has a pig's head, right? And he says when he walks by it, he's kind of looking at it, and he goes, well, it's not vibrant like the other, you know, creatures that they have locked up. And he kind of kicks at it, nudges at it, right? And it grabs him, and it looks at him, and he said, you know, this is a human, you know, with a pig head. And it says, "Are you God?" And he goes, when it said that, it looked at me with its eyes and said that. He goes, I don't know what came over me. He said, but I had to get out of there. And he goes, I am a tough person. I have done really evil things. And he goes, but that thing scared me. And he converted to a believer in Jesus after that, because he said, I knew we were 3.5 miles down into the earth. And he goes, something that was created down here and has never seen the surface, has never seen a sun, has never seen anything, asked me if I'm God. He said, how would it even know an entity like that exists?
Wow.
And so, and they say Dulce has that particular like Nightmare Hall. I just can't imagine what other weird things they had down there.
I just pulled up let me get it on the screen real quick for us, because this is supposedly what it looks like from the surface. Here we go. So these are the different levels that they have underneath, and the security levels they would be, correct?
Yeah, looks like it.
So, what am I going to say? Phil Schneider would have gone down to try to get into the 5th level, or did the aliens come up to the different levels? Were they? I'm trying to remember the story. Did he go down to the 5th level, or are they trying to escape?
Well, he went down past. He said he went down into what they would, I guess, would be the spuds, like the actual maybe the main supports of the lower levels, because he said that they broke through into another cavern that wasn't even part of their Dulce. And he said when they got down there, they engaged what he described as the gray aliens. And he says that they had Green Berets with him, and then like 66 Secret Service agents. Mm-hmm. And he also had a weapon. I don't remember if he said a sidearm or a rifle, but
yeah, he had a weapon.
Okay,
but it was nothing like they had.
Yeah, exactly. He said that
he had a conventional weapon. What they had was so far advanced.
Yes, he said it hit him like he said that the alien rubbed his belly, like kind of rubbed around his chest, and a blue light emitted from the alien and cut open Phil Schneider. Cut off his fingers, but cut open from his abdomen up his chest. Like he almost had like, heart and, stomach surgery.
Yeah.
But the thing that Phil, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And he lost 2 fingers?
I think so. I think he lost like maybe 3. I don't know if it started like at his pinky and angled up.
Yeah.
One of his last seminars before they killed him, he was in Las Vegas, I believe in 95. He actually got a close-up of his hand and it's the chest wound. But one thing about Phil was, number one, his father was part of Operation Paperclip. His name was Otto Schneider, and he came over here as a Nazi soldier that was yanked basically from Germany. And his father also was part of the Philadelphia experiment, which was the cloaking of the battleship. Mm-hmm. And then also Phil said that his father was in the photo where he described the alien Valiant Thor that was an advisor to, like, I think, Truman. So Phil knew a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that really got Phil in trouble was when he kept showing off the wound, because in that time there was no kind of laser that could cut you and cauterize you basically at the same time.
Right.
And that's what was raising questions about his particular wounds, was how there's no technology that we know that exists like that. And then he also now the other guy that his friend, I think the guy's name was like Ron Rumble. That guy died mysteriously, I think in 93, but Ron had given Phil a piece of metal that they mine on the moon. So Phil says there's mining operations on the moon, and he had a piece of that metal. And he actually brought it to that seminar in Las Vegas.
Yeah, he was passing it around. It was called metamaterials or something.
In other words, memory. You could crumple it up and it go back to its shape.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he had claimed that it was, this oxyacetylene torch couldn't do anything to it. Maybe even said might have been bulletproof, but it just went back to its shape, no matter what you did to it. And he said it came off the moon. And I guarantee, I think that was the last straw, because you can't have that happen. Not, not the elites letting that out. But not long after that, of course, he was, they called it suicide, but I think he had an infection. I think he was down for the count, maybe with like an infection, because they used his catheter to choke him with.
Yeah, that was his rubber catheter that they used from behind. So yes, I think he was, because he was in the chair. I think he was he wasn't bed bound, but he was
weak, and they really tortured him. They tortured him like he was beaten bad, tortured before he was choked. So they either tried to get information from him or get that material that he had. but he definitely was beaten. Like, they took their time before they,
exactly
choked him.
Exactly. Here's a picture of Phil. This is his chest wound. You could see that it basically filleted him from the bottom of his throat there, right down almost to his belly button. And I'm trying to find his hand. So you guys got to give me a couple minutes to do that. I am trying here. I used to have all of these. Oh, I found it. I used to have all of these things, but unfortunately, a lot of these things have been scrubbed off the internet.
That's another thing that I noticed. A lot of stuff, like, because when I, like I said, my conversion, I really started listening to everything I could find. And you're right. A lot of that stuff is scrubbed. I mean, definitely gone.
Here we go.
I look back at my notes and I'm like, well, you can't find this, but at least I wrote it down.
So on his left hand, he lost.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is, right? Or it's part of his thumb. So he lost 2.5 fingers. So
and look at the angle. I mean, I know they have to have, like, the surgery to finish off what was left, but it went up his chest, and maybe his hand was in front of his chest, like, as like, oh, he's gasping or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, nobody could explain how that wound was made and then fixed, cauterized. It's like there was nothing there. There was no kind of technology for that.
Exactly. And
was that reptilians or Greys that got him?
Greys. He definitely described him as Greys.
Okay.
A lot of stories also out of Dulce is what are the Greys from? Zeta
Reticuli.
Yeah.
Zeta Reticuli.
Yep. Like I said, that I don't think my mind can handle all that memory, but that in itself is a very interesting about the Nazis and that particular part where the Greys are from.
So are they bioengineered? I mean, are they engineered creatures like chimeras, or are they actually, that are demonized, or what?
But this is my opinion. I think that they're just a Nephilim hybrid. I don't know exactly why they look like that. Because I count like Bigfoot, any kind of fairy tale creature. I call that all Nephilim hybrids. They come from the fallen, whether they're bioengineered, in areas, or if they look like that and they just, happen to run in with, fallen. I don't know. I've never really thought about that.
They don't really look human.
No, they now here's the thing about what I have researched with the Greys. They're always involved in the majority of abduction stories. Mm-hmm. Now, I have encountered people that have told me personally that, now, see, people might tell you, well, when the Greys took me up, they kind of poked around and, and whatever. But now I have heard stories to where the Greys were like very, very, very angry, very evil. Usually in abductions, the reptilian-like species will try to engage in, intercourse, and the Greys kind of like watch. Now, like I said, I've researched over like 428. Now, the interesting to me is when they tell me that the Greys were the ones that are engaging and they get evil, and then sometimes the people will rebuke them, and not always, but when they rebuke in the name of Jesus, it's kind of like they said that the Grey's face, like the little mouth gets very wide, and it's like it just like basically burns them, like they can't stand. And obviously we know why, because they're not extraterrestrial, they're just little fallen entities. Mm-hmm. And then the person's like, pretty much get out of here, put them back in their bed or whatever. But when the people tell me that story about when the Greys are trying to induce that act, it's like to me it's like it's more evil than when the reptilian does it. I don't know why. It makes me think about Russ Dizdar, because at the time, anything that I was reading I tried to keep it to myself in my journey. I didn't want to involve my wife, but she started having dreams, and there's no way that she knew what I was talking about, what I was reading, anything. There's no way. And she would have these dreams that she would be abducted by these exact, beings with these latex lab coats on with I guess what you would say like a umbilical cord connecting them to the machine. And they would put her soul in a box. And I've heard, and this is before I started studying other people's cases. And she told me this, and that's kind of why I got rid of that. That's why I got rid of that book, because I know the Nazis had such, technology drawings from, Zeta Reticuli, from the Greys come from. And it was basically, as I said in one of my videos, I said, it was forming into my reality. That's why I got away from that particular section of the Nazis and the Greys. It was almost like you get too close to them.
It's like you're drawing it to you, maybe?
I think so. It's almost like, yes.
Like
when
doorways. When you open up the doorway,
yes.
you give them legal access to you.
Yes, in that sense, yes. And then it's like you almost uncover what they're really doing. And once you can explain to the unknown humans that they want to get their hands on, you tell them, they get really mad.
Exactly. Hold on just a minute. You guys, I'm pulling, I'm showing on the screen. This is ex-Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hellyer addressing the Canadian, I guess you would call it Parliament or whatever. And he's telling them about the alien races that have been working closely with the governments of the world for decades. This guy went on record talking about it. So I've got it up on the screen for you guys to play. I've also put the closed caption. So just so you know what you're listening to while we're talking to John, or know what you're watching while we're talking to John.
And then, yes, that's correct. I remember seeing that. So they say in 1954 that Eisenhower, I believe, made the pact with, the species, and trading off technology. Maybe they're allowed to take so many humans a year or whatever that may have been.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Well, this is, I may have mentioned this at some point, because like I said, I just can't keep track of what I talk about. But they claim that they brought Eisenhower, when they came down, they brought Eisenhower what they call the Dropa stones. And the Dropa stones looks like a record, maybe, definitely thicker. It's rock, and there's little, bumps, if you will, on top of the rock, kind of like the way it was formed. Maybe look like a little scale toy mountain range or whatever. And when you put it on the player that it comes with, I guess it just basically spins, and each bump on this rock has a harmonic sound when the little thing, nicks it, when it hit as it's spinning. So when you speed it up, it's literally like a record. The harmonic sound literally forms a hologram, almost like one of the first computer floppy disk, I guess. Mm-hmm. And wasn't
that one? It's not to interrupt you, but wasn't that one of the crop circles?
Something like, yes, it's all like the drop, yes, crop circles is like
no, I mean, wasn't that image put in on a crop circle?
I think so. I think it was. And that was the ancient computer memory, and it would form a hologram as you spin it faster. All the sounds would form a literal hologram. And they claimed that Eisenhower saw the crucifixion of Jesus. They filmed it and put it on the Dropa stone, and that's what convinced him to sign this treaty.
Wow.
And isn't part of that treaty is national parks, so many people per year?
Exactly. That's what I said last week about those are all Egyptian cities. Somebody told me that years ago that ended up being taken out. But he that was mentioned to me that Egyptian cities were in the national parks. That was the thing.
The Dropa Stone, if you watch the old Time Machine, the original H.G. Wells Time Machine, there was a Dropa Stone in the future when the main character went into the temple, and he found the Dropa Stone, and he spun it, and there was the image that came up, the holographic image.
That's real, and that's the thing. That is a real thing. It's like they know, because the Dropa was they were found in China, and that wasn't actually a tribe of people, the Dropa.
Wow.
And and that's where that they found, and that's, like I said, that's all about Tibet, and then the entrance to the Hollow Earth, but it shows a hologram, and they claim that it literally showed the crucifixion of Jesus. Eisenhower saw it.
Wow. You had mentioned in one of your TikToks about a coin.
Yes.
Can you what was on
the
it?
coin the coin was offered as pretty much payment per se, but it had it had a tower, and it had a crescent moon on top of the tower. It kind of like it looked like a bowl, and it had 3 stars, and the coin was from Ur. It was from where Abram was from at that time.
Wow.
So was this an ancient coin or something?
Okay. From what they said, they said this is from. This is from where we're going to find some cool stuff. This was a preliminary volunteer talk to say, hey, you want some more of this? Kind of like an Indiana Jones moment. And I was like, I don't know, it's a coin. But because like I said, I didn't know the history of any kind of city, none of that stuff. But it was from Ur. It was from Sumeria, where Abram was from before he became Abraham.
Wow. They sure know how to entice, don't they?
Don't accept none of that stuff. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I exist probably today.
Wow.
Well, I'm sure it would be cursed.
For some reason, I don't know. It's divine intervention. And even though I didn't believe in him, I think he just something told me like, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'll be okay. I don't want that.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
It's insane the things that is here on this earth right now.
It's just like Deb said earlier, nothing new under the sun. I mean, this is all stuff that's being
that's the whole thing. It's exactly, and it's easy. It's so simple to understand. You literally have a handful of people, more or less, that know something that billions don't know. But that's the simplest thing about it. You can reintroduce it. You can reinvent the wheel, and nobody ever know.
Right. Absolutely. We've seen that done hundreds of times, and I mean, you talked a little bit about the technology. Now, what is shown to us right now is antique or archaic compared to the technology that they actually have.
Oh, yes. 100% yes. Because
I used to say that they were like 50 years ahead of us in the technology, but now I'm thinking more like 120, maybe 100, maybe even 200 years.
Yes, definitely is.
It's the stuff we see in sci-fi movies that is actually what they have.
Oh yeah, they definitely Hollywood and the CIA. I remember one time you can actually go to the CIA website and they have like a whole section of like where Hollywood has to get approval basically for movies, and they got rid of that because somebody found it and blurted it out, and then they kind of that we're joking, but. I mean, it's always been like the law of Job, I guess. Like you have to tell them before you do something. That just makes too much sense. Do what you want to do to Job, but you just can't kill him, kind of deal.
Right.
And but I'm trying. Let me think what I was going to say about that. The DNA. It's always been about that. Any kind, surgeries and this and that. Yeah, Egyptians did that. The ones that they show us, but the Egyptians, like the fallen, basically, they, like I said before, the double helix was such a priority of theirs, and probably still to this day. Obviously, their only thing is to manipulate humans any way they can, whether it's stopping them from procreating or depopulation or whatever, manipulating obviously of Genesis 6:4, and anything that they can do has to do with DNA. They don't care about nothing. And it's always been it, like I said, every culture has been taught to do it. And when they talk, like, even look at like the medical symbol about the twin snakes, that's they're showing you like that's the serpent seed, because there is a serpent seed. There's a seed of woman and there's a seed of serpent.
Yeah.
And this is my opinion. I when I talk about the Rh negative factor, I know from I just know this is fact. Ham's wife was the only female that had that. That's that one. And I know that Nimrod manipulated that particular blood type, however scientific it may be. And he made the Ubermenschen, and I mentioned that last week. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's always been. And I think like I've run across several people in my journey of this life that are Rh negative, and they have something, whether you want to call them a psychic or an empath or whatever. I don't, it's just so much stuff. And they come on my TikTok and they put comments, and I believe them. They say, I know this, and before it happens, and I don't think that that's bad. I think it's just because they have that particular strand of DNA.
And there's good and bad on both. I mean, on Rh negative, I've met very good people who are Rh negative.
And then bad, yes. And here's the thing too: when Jesus says, "The belief in me makes all living creatures new again," he didn't say human; he said living creatures. So that covers everything with the belief in him. Mm-hmm. And I think that if people feel like they have something wrong with them, and they may have they may have visions or whatever, and it may be of snakes, and I just run into people like that. It's like, no, he makes you new again. He takes that. It doesn't matter that you have that. You can be redeemed. But like you said, they're some good or some bad. Maybe just their attitudes. Maybe it has nothing to do with their particular blood type. But like I said,
oh, go ahead.
I just keep that as like that's what I truly believe.
I sometimes wonder if they were the original garden people before we were corrupted, because original man, because they don't have the monkey stuff that we have, So I just wonder, because they have superpowers, almost not superpowers, but they seem to be gifted. We'll just say that.
Well,
it's true.
It's been proven that Rh negative people actually have reptilian traits. They have a lower blood pressure. They have lower body temperature. They're more susceptible to being psychic, having psychic abilities. There's a number of things. I'll try to find it, but it's actually been proven scientifically. Some people are born with an extra vertebrae or an extra 2 or 3 vertebrae at the bottom.
Tail, basically a tail.
That's basically a tail. Let me pull that up for. I pulled it up the other day for somebody. I had a hard time, again, stuff getting scrubbed off the internet. I had to search.
It seems like they're waiting. They're like, okay, what's the next big thing? Oh, Rh negative. Oh no, they're finding out.
I've been doing this for years, John, and I know exactly what I'm looking for and where it is.
Yes.
And I go to get it, just like the androgynous with the goats. I can only find that on DuckDuckGo. It's completely been erased off of Google. Before we go on, I want to ask you a question before I forget, because I know I'm going to forget and I'm going to be mad at myself. Are the elite, are the 1%, are they immortal? Are we looking at actual vampires from our horror movies and are they immortal? Are they like the human form of or the modern day Anunnaki?
I would think maybe to an extent with the whole adrenochrome, saga. I think that the only promise that Lucifer gave them was Genesis 3:22. That's because it's on top of the skull and bones. 3:22 is that you shall be like gods. Now, obviously, he couldn't, make them immortal. It was more, he could probably prolong their life, and they thought they lived forever. But God defeats all that. And I think they truly believe in that particular thing that, well, we can live for 500 years, but they know that they're going to die. But I think that they prolong themselves with either blood transfusions or, if you want to get into the fact that maybe they harmonic energy, whether they're trying to hold their form. And I don't know. I know that reptilians and shapeshifters, I've encountered, not me particularly, but somebody very close to me has encountered a shapeshifter. And I know, that they can be a snake-like viper because, like I said before, Enoch described that, Zechariah Ascension described the Anunnaki like vipers. So are they just, and then it's like, why are they old people? You know what I mean? If the Queen was one, or if all these old, Rothschilds, why they're all old, why don't they like look younger? I don't know. I think they definitely have some kind of program that keeps them, living towards 100 years old.
They could even have demonic possession that keeps their body animated, right?
Yeah, very, yes, very, very possible. And I do know this, and how it can branch off from there with with anybody's research or speculation or opinion or whatnot, is that they just know their bloodlines back to before the flood waters rose. That's how they're the elite to me.
I think that's probably because their bloodline, their family trees are basically stumps. They really don't have to they don't have to trace like we do. Like when we do our DNA, we've got, this grandmother here, this one over here, this one goes here, this one's over here. They are just literally a stump. They know that grandma and grandpa and this one and that one, and that was it. It stayed within the family. I did an article a number of years ago on hemophilia and how that is a disease of the elite, and it's caused from interbreeding. It's caused by incest. And when the ancients used to have it, how they would treat it was with adrenochrome.
Okay, yeah, I believe that.
Here's what I found, the Rh negative. They have an extra vertebrae. They have lower than normal body temperature, lower than normal blood pressure, high mental and analytical abilities, higher negative ion shielding from positive charged virus bacteria around the body, high sensitive to EM and L fields, hypervision and other senses. So yeah, these are scientifically been proven. That
I want to add this too, like with the elite. Now they call them, whether you heard it through like Illuminati channels or interviews or whatever, the blue bloods. Mm-hmm. This is, I think, where this comes from. Rh negative people have more of a copper-based blood, not iron. And pure copper, exactly from like the Great Lakes, when you melt it, it's blue.
Yep.
And that right there says volumes to me that the blood is blue.
They are copper-based.
Exactly.
Copper-based. We as human beings and creatures created by God in His image, we are carbon-based. But you know what? I think that's the reason that they are terraforming the atmosphere with all these chemicals.
100%.
Because they're preparing it for these
yes,
entities.
They're preparing it because they're bringing back the atmosphere from before the flood.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
So these things can survive with their copper base, higher nitrogen levels. Where basically humans, like you said, we're based off that we won't perform as well in that environment, but these things will come on strong and it'll be built for them. That's exactly right. With the term, as best I can, the person that had, okay, I was told a story by somebody very close to me. And the reason why I know it's true is because this person has never believed in any of this, has always just told me how it was and never contributed to anything that's conspiracy, alien, nothing of that stuff. So I know when they tell me this, I'm like, okay, now I know you're being serious because you've never given in to anything. You think it's all bull. Mm-hmm. So they told me that when they were young, they had a sibling, and this sibling was murdered when I was 6 months old. And when they were young, he'd get a cut on his knee, or obviously childhood injuries. And this person told me that his blood was weird. Everybody in the family would say it was weird. And I said, "What do you mean weird? Like weird?" And she's always the color of it. And I said, "Well, what do you mean? Was it like, was it oxygenated? It had like a bit of, like black to it, maybe because it, was around the liver." And she said, "No, it was blue, the bluest you've ever seen." And I'm like, well, I said, I know sometimes, I said, I've encountered that when I was given IVs in the military as a combat lifesaver. I said, sometimes you hit the vein and it's, blue would come out. Not like crazy blue, but, you could tell that you just hit the wrong part.
Big John, that reminds me of something. Have you seen the movie Captain Marvel?
I have not seen that.
Has any of you ladies seen it?
No.
Okay. Well, the central theme was to rescue a race. I believe it's called the Krill. They were lizard people, and Captain Marvel, when she was in the Air Force, she was flying somebody who, at the time, she didn't know that she was a lizard shapeshifter. Well, it got struck down by another alien force, and the person that she was carrying was bleeding from her head, and it was the color blue.
No way. I really have not seen that, but that doesn't surprise me that there it is.
It was a lizard.
Well, all of those movies essentially are telling us that these demigods, because Thor and Loki and all of those movies, those are the demigods, and they have them all coming through portals, coming back to this reality, so that doesn't surprise me in the least.
That's interesting, because I like I said, I have not seen that. Any kind of superhero, I don't even know what movie I saw last, honestly, but I have not watched any of the you said Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
Captain Marvel.
I'm gonna look into that, but I know, well, obviously they got Captain America, right? Like the other trilogy or whatever. I don't know, the series of movies, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look at that. But it's interesting, but it's not surprising because of the, they have to show you like the blue. So so the copper-based blood is blue, and then this particular person told me that, when their sibling was a child, bled blue, and everybody thought that's the weirdest thing ever, because she said it was like, like a crystallus blue, like you would see, like, like, I don't know, did you even have that kind of color blue in the 60s and 70s? You know what I mean? Like, could you even describe it? And she just said it was like, she goes, it was just something. This is what she said. She said it was blue, like, remember the old blue toothpaste for kids that had the sprinkles in it or whatever, the glitter?
Aqua Fresh.
Aqua, yeah.
Yes, I remember that as kind of when I was growing up. That she described it to that.
How was it? Close to the horseshoe crab's blood right here, the blue?
But yeah, maybe so. I think she said the toothpaste. That's all she could reference. But yeah. I mean, that's look at that.
That's not normal. That's just not normal. Well, in the medical field, when they give you the circulatory system, they break it up between blue and red. And
that's right.
I've always thought, since doing my research and stuff, I've always thought that they taught us that just in case we ran across somebody in the field that had blue blood, we wouldn't freak out.
Yeah, because like I remember during the IV administration, like, what is it, like the oxygen levels in the blue blood isn't enough, or it hasn't passed through something yet. I remember that. I don't remember exactly, but I'm obviously not a doctor. But I remember like it was blue, but it wasn't like she described. I was like, well, they have this. This has to exist because, and like I said, the only reason why, because this person does not believe in none of this stuff. Nothing.
Right. Heather says, yes, they tell you that when your blood hits the oxygen, it turns red. Yes,
okay.
They do. That's what they teach you in medical school. Absolutely,
okay.
They do.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but this was my theory. And if y'all remember me saying this, just cut me off because I don't want to say it again. But people, okay, so we go back to like people say that they're empaths or psychic, whatever. People have the copper blood. Well, copper is a conductor. Exactly the most ever on this planet. And I've heard people say that they can have a son or a daughter or whatever, family member that say has an argument, somewhere else besides not with them. And now when you have an argument and you speak words that are wrath or angry or sorrow, it makes a harmonic, it makes a frequency, it makes a harmonic imbalance into the atmosphere. And I literally think that people with that copper blood, I think that they can pull that from the atmosphere with their blood and compute it through their blood into their brain and see what exactly happened. Because I can remember that, not all the time, but my mother used to know a lot of things when I got home. And like to the T. I'm thinking, well, how does she even know that? But I've run into people that are that, RH negative, that say, if my daughter got into a fight with her boyfriend, like I knew about it, like everything that happened before she even told me. And I was like, oh, well, I said, well, your blood pulled that from an atmosphere. It pulled down the frequency and it computed it in your brain into a vision that you saw it. And that's, that may sound crazy.
No, it makes sense to me.
But I mean, everybody, I had mentioned before when I first did a video about Maria Orsic and like a woman's hair is an antenna. That's why, a certain length gives a woman knowledge, that was definitely the main summary of the Vril Society that Maria Orsic, ran. I think and I'm not bragging, but I think I was the first one on TikTok to even bring her up. And
what's her name again?
Maria Orsic, Orsic. She was the leader.
Beautiful.
Yes, that's another thing about her. She doesn't look like somebody who was born in 1895.
Mm-mm.
Like I said, I haven't seen obviously pictures of people from her. I'm just saying she's very intriguing looking.
Yeah, she's like a supermodel.
Yeah,
but a girl.
she had claimed, and it was almost fact. Not almost. It was fact because we recovered the Nazi flying saucer that she designed in 1944 in the City of Times. And she got that technology because of the length of her hair from, it's like almost, it's an antenna basically. And this is her describing it because she was a leader of the Vril Society.
I was just going to ask if she was a Vril. Oh my goodness.
100% Vril, 100%.
I was, those eyes give it away.
Yeah. Oh, she was a leader. And I've heard stories that after World War II, Ukrainian soldiers, because Hitler had 5 U-boats that were the S series, that were the size of aircraft carriers. And Ukrainian soldiers remember seeing like literally up towards of 25,000 women that all look like her boarding these U-boats going to Antarctica.
Yep.
And so that, like I said, that's a whole nother saga. But basically, Maria Orsic said that a woman's hair is an antenna. She got the technology to build a flying saucer. Literally got the what people use today and what they believe, like when they have the tritium material and you spin mercury around it, like at 40,000 RPM, it becomes anti-gravital. And that's a literal proven experiment. And that's what they said, that's what they said. That was the engine systems for these Nazi craft, maybe of the ones that Admiral Byrd encountered in Antarctica.
Wow.
Didn't they look like bells?
Well, yeah, that came from the design of the Vimanas from like the Hindu culture.
Oh.
And then, yes, the Nazi bell is exactly, they copied the Vimanas. But yes, that was also a flying machine. And then I can't think of it starts with an H, or maybe like HUEBENNE. It's like you can buy the model from Hobby Lobby of the Nazis spacecraft. That's the one they captured in 1944. It may be a joke, but to Hobby Lobby, but you can buy the model, like you buy a little military truck or like an old Panzer tank or whatever. You can buy the Nazi flying saucer they designed. It's actually a military model.
Wow. At Hobby Lobby, huh?
Yes. I'm gonna get the name of it. It's the Hanubei Mark II. That was the design they gave it, but that's the one that we captured, and that's the one that Admiral Byrd encountered.
I'm gonna pull that up for us.
Yeah, military. Put a Nazi flying saucer, but yeah, it's a model toy you can get.
There it is, right there, guys.
That's an old timer.
We captured that. It was still sitting in its little landing base, its little landing podium in 1944.
Here we go.
There it is. That's a little military toy. You can put it together. I remember that, and it was at Hobby Lobby with the King Tiger tanks and all that. I just love World War II equipment, but yeah, it was there.
And this coincides with the fact that they have to, according to Kabbalistic law, tell us in advance what they're going to do, and they put it right out in front of us. It's not their fault that we don't catch on to it.
Well, we do. Some of us do, and then we get mocked and ridiculed.
That's exactly what happens. But yes, they got to put it out there. Yeah, it's the law basically set for it. I don't know. I'd call it the law of Job. But they have to put it in there. But that's interesting. Then we go back to like the Captain Marvel deal he talked about about the blue blood. That's just what it is,
Here's the telegraphing, or that says, according to Kabbalistic rituals, one has to tell his cursed victim that they're cursed. Therefore, when they die, after knowing what is about to happen to them, the supreme supernatural power of the occult is revealed and glorified to the entire world. Luciferians of all stripes love to glory in their power. They love to tell their victims and then watch that victim totally powerless to prevent their demise. They feed off this energy of their victims. And this is why when we put the information out to you, we always tell you that we're not doing it to put you into a stressful emotion. We're not putting it out there to fear porn. We're not putting it out there to put the fear of God or the fear in you, because that's not a spirit of God. We're just putting the information out there for you guys to, hopefully be aware of the things that are coming. Because John, I don't think people even have a clue as to what's about to be unleashed on this earth.
I don't think so neither. I guess the whole thing about Jesus said the men's heart's failing them.
Yeah,
literally. That's and the thing is, I don't know if I made this comment before, but when he says for things coming upon us from underneath the ground.
Yeah.
And guess what? You got dumbs down there with, Nightmare Hall things.
Yeah, like Skinwalker type things.
All kind. There's no Skinwalker. Whatever. All the stuff that you hear, whether it's paranormal or whatever, real cryptid, fairy tale creature. These things are on standby, in my opinion, waiting to be unleashed. And one of the main things too, like in the Septuagint in Isaiah 13, I believe it is. It's not in the King James, but in the Septuagint Bible in Isaiah 13, it says, "Open the gates, ye rulers; giants come forth, to basically devour you." On Babylon, and it's like, and then like also in Isaiah about the ashes of Babylon, the satyrs shall dance. That's half man, half goat things.
Mm-hmm.
While you're saying it, just dawned on me. Lori found, or I'm sorry, Lori. I'm looking in chat. Trish found this.
100%. See, and the thing is, people may laugh at that, but China got in trouble for showing this on YouTube years ago.
Yep.
And they were like, "Oh no, I can't show that." And they even had. I don't know if you can find it, but they genetically engineered Holstein cows that had
human faces.
And they had human female breasts on them instead of udders.
Oh boy. Yeah, I've seen pictures of things washing up on shore that had like human faces.
That exists. I mean, here's the thing too that people say, well, the Bible, 2 Samuel 23:20, the lion-like men of Moab. Those two things were half man, half lion. They weren't lion-like because even in the Hebrew, that's not like, oh, they were mighty and strong. No, it means they were half lion.
Right, exactly. When you see the hieroglyphics on the Egyptian walls or the Sumerian text, and you see that these,
too. Yes, yep, you're right.
They are real. Those griffins were real. Those half human, half animal chimeras are absolutely real. Here's
even when God turned Nebuchadnezzar into one of those things, it's like, where did God come up with that? It's because he knew what that was. He's like, you know what? You like worshiping them. Guess what? You're gonna be one of these.
Ugh, creepy. It makes me. I have to ask you. Did you guys ever hear the video or the recording of? There was like a hole in the ground and there was screams. So I'm almost wondering, could hell be technically beneath our feet? Are the dumbs hell?
I guess in a sense, like according to Greek, Tartarus is the bottomless pit, and then you got Hades above it. Now, the abyss being to me like where the rich man went, because that's what I kind of tell people, like, well, you put me in the abyss, and there was no fire in it like that. There was just a bunch of very evil creatures down there. And now, like where Lazarus went to Abraham's bosom, not necessarily heaven. He went to the resting waters. Now where the rich man ended up with, I believe, was the abyss. Now, Lazarus could see the rich man, but couldn't be with him. Couldn't like actually interact with him, but could see him. So whether the dumbs are dimensional, I'm sure they have dimensional, stargates down there and stuff, and they are, of course, obviously physical, but I think now maybe what they're doing is definitely hellish with the experiments, and if they even take people down there, whether they're homeless or who knows what goes on down there. I just know one thing. I can't wait till the Lord is everything He will be revealed, that He can open those things up and expose what really goes on.
This world, I don't even recognize it. It's changing so much. It's moving into advancements that they're hiding in plain sight. I mean, they give us these cell phones that people will sit, in line for weeks on end to get. We walk around, our heads are buried. We don't even see what's going on in the skies. There's been an uptick in phenomenon in the sky, these UFOs that we don't understand. There's but they know what they can do. The Tavistock Institute, if you guys don't know what it is, go research the Tavistock. We're going to do a show on it in a couple of weeks. The Tavistock has done a very good, an excellent brainwashing the entire population, to the point where people like us, if we were come out literally, and in the general public, not here because everybody is pretty much on the same page here, but if we were to go out into the public and start talking about this, it would look like we had three heads.
Yeah,
for sure.
Tinfoil hat.
I mean, we're looking at Ye, who is really telling some pretty big truths, and look how society is looking at him now.
Looking at him like he's like we're crazy. So the world isn't prepared what's about to be unleashed.
It's not.
And it's coming very quickly. I mean, the Bible tells. I've had so many people come to me in the last couple of weeks telling me, Lori, what is going on with the time? It feels like time is just flying by. And I keep reminding them that, time, we were told in the Bible, the time needs to be shortened unless, there would be none of us left if it was to carry on the way it is. So time's flying, different times are changing. Things are coming so fast, as it's already almost the end of 2022, guys. It seems like it was just yesterday. It was 2020. And
yeah, for sure.
All of this stuff is going to really, within the next few years, I'm going to say within the next 5 years, we're not even going to recognize these things that are going to be walking on our planet, that we're just going to be looking like, what are they?
No, we'll be trying to flee to the mountains. Those with eyes to see and ears to hear.
leftist scene is there.
Yeah, flee to the wilderness. That's right.
Yeah, get out of the cities, guys. I tell people that a lot.
That's exactly correct.
I say that it's kind of like don't do as I do as I say, because I live in Chicago and I don't think we're hoping to move out of here, but I don't know if we're going to in the near future or when. But so when I tell people get out of the city, people that know me are like, "Girl, you're in Chicago." But yeah, I'm going to. We're coming up. We got 5 minutes left, so. What do you guys want to talk about in the last 5 minutes? Can we wrap that up or put a nice shiny bow on it?
There's just so much more I want to talk to John about.
Yeah. I really would like to talk about the Israel stuff too.
Yeah.
Me and Lori uncovered some stuff this week too.
Yeah, we have.
Tartaria and
John. I'm going to ask you, John. Can you come back next Wednesday?
Yeah, if you have me back, I'll be back.
Wow. All right, because awesome. we get talking and so much stuff comes to my mind, and I'm going to put the link in the description, guys. Go over and watch his videos. Like he says, he's got 3 minutes to put so much information in it, and it'll blow your mind. And John, you are opening up so many people because I'm seeing less and less pushback in your comment section.
Yes, you're right about that. You're right. I try to get everybody's, and I wish I could answer everybody on there, but you're right about that. It's actually, I just try to keep it as, hey, this is what I know. I've always kept the same genre. I don't have a dog in the hunt, but you're right about, if everybody can at least have a chance to figure this out, then,
exactly.
That's what I'm aiming for.
Exactly. Charity says, can't you guys just do a 24/7 stream?
Like I said, y'all, and I appreciate y'all because y'all keep me on topic, because I can literally go off in 10 million different directions of.
That's why we need like a 24-hour
right
stream.
There with you. What's that, Ernie?
Because it just
that's why we need a 24-hour stream.
Yeah, right.
We could.
Jonathan.
We could definitely.
Jonathan. The Jonathan. That is so funny.
yeah, Jonathan. I tell you what, it's people. I know, like some of my videos, I would literally be tired, and I remember somebody I had put, because I just say how I feel, I guess, and I'm like, well, I drank some water and I'm not tired anymore, and somebody really took that to, like, they thought that was the funniest thing that they ever heard, and I said, well, it's just true. I was tired and I drank a swig of water, and then here I am with telling y'all how these numbers connect about the Roswell crash, and they're just like, how come it don't happen when I drink water?
You take a big swig. That the video that you have pinned is the one with the numbers from Roswell?
Yes.
Okay. I will on my phone is where I'm logged into my TikTok account, where I'm connected to John. John and I are friends over there, so I can pull up his tag or his pinned. I'm getting tired, guys. His pinned videos. So what I'll do is I'll pull it off my phone and give you guys the link and put it in the description area, so you can watch that one and reach out and connect. I'm on TikTok. John's on TikTok. Trish is on TikTok. Ernie's on TikTok. Deb's on TikTok. Huh?
I object.
Overruled. Relevance. I'm sorry. We've been watching the Brooks trial for days, so we're all overruled. The veil has been lifted. She's over there. Red Pill Truth is over. We're all over on TikTok, because I gotta say, for all of the social media platforms right now, TikTok has to be the one where the most information is putting out there for the time being.
And remember, it's controlled by the Chinese government.
Right.
Say thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's hope I can still log into my account once the social credit score gets put in, because we're all screwed when it gets.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they definitely won't like that.
So
that's all right. I'll leave some trees. I'm good.
Exactly. Well, John, I really want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we really look forward to next week, the same time, and hopefully we can get into maybe just talk about Roswell, maybe talk about Antarctica and the Antarctic Treaty, and Admiral Byrd. Would that be a topic that you would?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Can we talk about floods?
We talk about what?
The floods.
The floods. We could.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a whole episode on that, Trish.
We need to. I need to look into. Honestly, that's probably the only topic I never really. Now it's definitely logical to me, but I've never really dove into it. So
yeah, Trish, I'm gonna form a group over on our Signal, and we're gonna get into the Tartaria. We're gonna get into the mud floods. We're gonna get into all of that over there. And
I heard Tartaria goes well with fish.
You're funny.
Definitely. That sounds good. Yeah, y'all can educate me on that for real.
All right. So thank you for joining us, John. Like I said, I'll put the link in his description below. He'll be back next week. Want to tie it up, Ernie?
Oh yes, of course.
Oh yes.
It's just a blessing to be on here and just to be around like-minded people who love the Lord and love each other. I mean, we don't find that in our physical world when we're going around interacting with other people. I mean, people's attitudes they're worse than they're ever before, especially our young kids. They have no direction. They don't have any guidance or mentorship from godly individuals, and they're just running roughshod all over our world. And having a firm foundation in the house is essential to, as Joel Osteen puts it, living your best life, because your best life will come from the Lord. And that's when you leave this earth. And yes, we are going to endure. We're going to go through a lot of things. We're going to see things in which those who are not elect or are saved by the blood of Jesus Christ, their hearts will grow cold. And we are just here to tell you things that are biblically and as prophesied for thousands of years. Yeah. And this stuff should not be a surprise to each and every one of us. And Lori talked about it earlier. We're not here to bring fear on you guys. Fear comes from Satan. God hasn't provided us with spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And we have to keep following God's wisdom and God's guidance. And the first thing you have to do is, one, declare yourself as a born-again, blood-washed believer in the Most High, and two, build your relationship on the rock.
And ask and pray for discernment.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
100%.
100%.
Because the great deceiver is going to deceive more than you have ever experienced in your entire life in the history of humanity, to be honest with you.
And Satan is attacking a lot of us right now. A lot of people are feeling, the weight of the world, or, whether it's through attack of our family relationships, our personal relationships. It's been pretty bad this last few months. And
Lori's talking about me, so
I'm talking about all of us, actually. It's pretty much all of us have endured something in these last few months. So
it's only going to get worse, guys.
It is. All right, I want to thank all of our guests for joining us tonight. I want to thank all of our chatters as well, everybody in the chat room. If you're new to the channel, again, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we go live. We'll be back on what's today? Wednesday. We'll be back.
Trish, make sure you stick around after we end this live stream, please.
We'll be back on Sunday, provided we have been breaking in with breaking news when it pertains to national security, when it pertains to what's going on over in North Korea. We're still keeping an eye on North Korea. We're still keeping an eye on the Ukraine. We're still keeping an eye on Russia. So if anything happens or breaks in that area, we will come back on live. But our next scheduled show will be Sunday night at 8:00. I'm going to do, Sunday night at 8:00. And John will be back with us next week. So again, guys, not the spirit of fear, informational purposes only, so that you have the ability to prepare yourself, prepare your family, and so you're not taken off guard for what comes. And remember, guys, eyes open, no fear.
No.